everybody, it's Cindy, and today I have a video for you that will show you a couple of things. I'm going to do a card, but before I do the card, I am going to show you something I made that takes the place of a stamp positioning tool. You've probably seen the tools like the Misty stamp positioner that just came out. It's 8.5 by 11. I am not going to purchase an 8.5 11 because I don't do enough cards to make it worth my while, but I do some cards. And I do a lot of scrapbooking. So until they come up with a 12 by 12 Misty, which would be useful for stamping on scrapbook 12 by 12 layouts, I made this. And this is just the same basic concept as a Misty. It's just a stamp positioning tool. And I made it using a couple of sheets of craft foam and then a blank DVD case. And I think I got this at Goodwill for like 9 cents. It was nothing. So all I did was lay this open, lay the craft foam down underneath it, like this, and basically trace around the little places where it's indented, like right there, and then trimmed off the bottom half of it where I didn't need it, so that it fit inside here perfectly. And then I did that twice because I think I used 2 layers. I may have only used 1 layer on this one. Let's see. Yeah, this one's only 1 layer. And I found that I really like this for all of my rubber stamps with the 1 layer. And then when I do need a second layer, let's see if I can find it, for things like the polymer stamps, photopolymer, or clear mount or clear stamps, then I have this one that I did the exact same thing, only I cut out a notch here and notches here just to make room for, so that it would close, to make room for the lid and stuff. So that's what I did. And then the other thing I did for this was to get a grid paper that I found online, and it's just, I think it's 5, each one of the little squares is about 1/5 of an inch for every 5 boxes that makes an inch. And I just found a printable grid sheet online. I can put the Google link to the one I used here below. That just allows me to line things up before I use it. And then this side gives you that little bit of lift so that your paper will meet your stamp. And then it also gives you that little bit of a give, which you want on any time you're going to be doing any kind of stamping. You want that little bit of give because it gets a better impression. I think Stephanie Bernard has her stamp tool that has that same, the stamping surface that's got just a little bit of a give. Instead of being a hard, unforgiving surface, you want the surface to give just a little bit, not the stamp. So that gives you the best impression. So this is just my, until they come out with a 12 by 12 Misty, I'm not going to purchase one, and they may not. So in the meantime, this works great for what stamping I do and making cards. So like I said, it's this DVD case, an empty one, and I got mine at Goodwill, and there's DAV thrift stores that have them, and you may be able to go to your local video place and ask them for one. Target has some really cool ones that they use that are a little bit more sturdy, and I asked them if I bought a DVD if I would get the case too, and they don't do that. So I'm going to try to talk to the electronics department again and see if I can get us, because it's really heavier duty plastic and I think it would last longer. So, and then two sheets of craft foam if you want to be able to use it with polymer stamps, 1 sheet of craft foam if you just have rubber stamps. Trim around it, cut it, glue it down. I used Sukwing tape. You can see it kind of around the edges there. And then I used the same thing on the back too. You can see it kind of at edges there. And I just made it, put some pattern paper, I think this is pink paisley, so that when I set it on the shelf it looks good. Yeah, so I'm going to use that today when I make my card, and I will link the place where I found the free printable grid paper below the description of the video. So there's that. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a card using it. So let me get this out of the way. And I'm going to use the same Giggle reading stamp set again, only I'm going to use the cheese one. I did one earlier that I will link down below the video using the Life is Just a Bowl of Cherries, And now I'm going to use the one that says age is something that doesn't count unless you're a cheese. So that's the Stampin' Up! Giggle Greetings stamp set. This is a piece of watercolor paper because we're going to do some watercoloring using some distress ink. This is, I think, Ranger. It's the Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor cardstock. I'm going to use the smooth side because I'm going to stamp on it, so I'm going to use the smooth side, but it's still watercolor paper. So what you do is open the tool. So you position it where you want the paper, find a nice smooth area, even area to put it. Position the stamp exactly where you want it on the paper. And like I said, I'm going to leave this open because I'm going to have some ribbon down around the bottom. And then you push this down to pick up the stamp. Now what you want to remember is you need to keep your stamps clean, so you need to wipe off the front of your stamp. And then you also want to keep this really clean and free of oils because it'll keep it from adhering very well. So then once I've done that, I'm going to make sure that that looks fairly even and that it's not all wonky. And I'm going to double check the positioning. I am going to be using Ranger Archival ink, which is going to be kind of awkward, but I want it because it's waterproof and it works really well when you're using sort of a watercolor technique. This is going to prove to be awkward because of the size, but that's okay. I'm going to try to get a really good even coating of my ink here. Maybe a little more. And I'm just tapping the ink on. Put it until I get good coverage of the black, because I want a perfect image. Okay, that looks pretty good. Set it out of the way. And then I'm going to just go ahead and make sure this is lined up and I don't move it. And I'm just going to go ahead and press this down. Now one of the mistakes people make when they're stamping is that they don't leave the ink down long enough. So once I've made sure I've pressed down everywhere, I'm going to hold it there for a few seconds. You want the ink to penetrate that paper. So I know I've gotten a good impression. I know I've pressed down the whole stamp really well, and I'm just going to leave it on there for 3 or 4 seconds and let the ink really saturate the paper. I think I learned it from the frugal crafter Lindsay, and it has made a world of difference in the way my stamped impressions come out. So there we go. And as you can see, it's a really crisp, clean image. The sentiment came out absolutely perfect, and I got it lined up exactly where I wanted it. So there's that. I'm going to clean my stamp off in a few minutes. So I'm just going to set that out of the way. I'm going to close this up. So then I'm going to tap on some of the Abandoned Coral Distress ink. It's one of the new colors. I'm not entirely sure exactly which month it is. I just need a tiny little bit of this because the only thing I'm using this for is the candle. So then I'm going to use my fine brush and I'm just going to run it over the candle like that, and then I'm going to go back in with a little bit more to make those stripes just a little bit darker. There's the candle. So I put it on really lightly on the first layer and then added a little bit extra pure ink, and I'll probably go back over that one more time with just a little bit more ink and no water. Just to make those stripes really, really stand out. And then maybe just a little bit down this side to give it kind of a shadow. There. So there's the candle. Sorry if I went off camera there a little bit. So I picked a couple of different colors for the cheese, and I'm going to use the mustard seed as the shadow color. I'm going to use the squeezed lemonade as the main color. So most of it is going to be colored in with this, and then the darker spots will get colored in with that mustard seed, and then I'll also use it for a shadow on one side. So we'll go ahead and start with this one, which is the squeezed lemonade. And I'm just going to pat some of this down. Let's see if I can zoom out just a little bit. See You can see it a little better. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to pat a little bit down there. You don't need much. I'm going to use a clean paper towel and just blot up a little bit of the color. And then I missed a little bit right here. Like I said, I'm just going over the whole thing completely to give that nice base color. Oops, sorry if I bumped the camera there. And then I'm going to leave that where it is, and I'm going to add some mustard seed to the mix. So just a little bit of that. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up some water right here, and then a little bit of this darker color, and I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of that so I don't get a real stark contrast. I want a real light contrast. So that's the puddle of color I'm going to use to shadow. So I'm just going to start bringing in some of that color and kind of going from the side. More water, and just kind of spread it out a little bit more because I don't want any harsh lines, but I do want to make it look like this side is the darker side right here. And maybe a little bit more of this darker color mixed into the shadow pieces, the little holes in the Swiss cheese here. And then I'm going to go in with some of the straight color on this place where the darkest shadow will be. And then also right here by the candle. And that'll be the straight mustard seed, where I'm just going to add a little bit of extra shadow. And then a little bit more in a couple of these spots with the straight ink, just to give it that illusion that those are definitely, you're seeing further into the slice of cheese. There. So it's pretty simple. Makes it look like the cheese is actually there instead of just being a picture. And for the plate, I am going to use another one of the new colors, which is Twisted Citron, and I wanted to use that to be a real direct contrast to the coral and the yellow. So tap a little bit of that down. Like I said, you don't need too much in any of these. A little squirt of water, and we'll start coloring in this plate. And I'm just going to mix in a little bit of water and turn this so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. And then just fill in the plate with my fine brush. Okay. So it's a nice bright bold green. And then where there's no with the direct color with no water added, I'm just going to go in and make that shadow on the plate. Just like that. The shadow is definitely already drawn in for you, so you kind of know where to put it. But by adding that color, it gives it a little bit more depth. And then the last thing I'm going to do is do the candle, and then also this little shadow that's actually under the plate. So now I'm going to use this mustard seed. One little pat. I'm done with that one. And then I'm also going to use fossilized amber, which is another new color, and that's a little bit darker yet. And I'm only doing the candle with this, so I just need a couple of drops of water. And I'm going to go in with the mustard seed first and pat that in there. And then I'm going to go in with directly with the fossilized amber, which is just going to give it a really nice kind of an orange tint on that one side. There. Pretty simple. Nothing to it. And it really does look kind of flame-like. Okay. So then my final step is to darken in that shadow right there. And I am going to do that with a little bit of Pumice Stone, which is an older color. It's not one of the new ones. They do have a really nice gray that's hickory smoke. I just don't have it yet. Now let's try this again. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of the shadow, deepen this up. Just come out a little bit of cold water because it doesn't seem to be blending very well. Okay. I'm just going to come straight out under the edge of the plate, the real fine layer of this color, and that just gives it that illusion of sitting on something instead of just drifting in midair. And this stamp set's really great because it gives you the lines for the shadows, so if you're relatively new to creating shadows and blending and things, it gives you the guidelines to do it. So there's my sentiment and my image for my card base. I'm going to clean up my craft sheet here, and then we'll put together the card. So now, while my image dries a little bit, I'm going to build my card base. And one of the things I have learned that some people don't know is when you are scoring, one of the tricks that makes for better, stronger, sturdier card bases and mini albums is to know which way to fold. So this is an 11-inch by 4 1/4 inch sheet of Nina Solar White Classic Crest cardstock, 110 pounds, and it is my go-to for card bases. I am going to score this at 5.5 to create my card base. It's going to be a tall, skinny card. And when you score, you're going to get two different kinds of lines. It's kind of the basis of scoring. I don't know if you can see it or not. There you go. So you'll get the indentation, and then on the opposite side you get that little peak, so to speak. You get the little bump. So you got the innie and the outie, right? There's the outie, there's the innie. You always want to fold over the outie. It would make sense, it seems intuitive kind of, to fold over and leave this sticking up, but you don't want to do that. You want to fold down from the innie part, if that makes sense at all. And the reason you do is because this has more, when you've pushed it in, this has more texture and more substance to it, so when you fold over that, it has something to rest on, and it has something to fold around, and that makes it more sturdy and also less likely to crack. And all I'm going to do is fold this over. You leave the innie part on the outside of the fold. You fold over the outie. Okay, and then I'm going to hold it down and just go ahead and use my bone folder, and there you go. The outside, it's a nice clean fold. There's no cracks. It folds really well. So that's my card base, and we're gonna have this pattern paper, which I believe is American Crafts, but it's an older one, and this is just some plain green cardstock. I think it's came with a Studio Calico kit. I just grabbed a bunch of stuff from my stash. And then we're also going to use this ribbon. It's a little piece of velvet. And then this will go here. I will mount that down. This will go on the top. So we'll go ahead and put these together. I am going to use my ATG gun for this part of the card base now that this is good and dry. And I probably go a little overkill on tape, but especially when you're using watercolor paper and you have watercolored the image, you want something that's going to give it a really sturdy base. You don't want the warping to occur, which sometimes does occur with watercolor paper. So there's that. And I'm going to put this green right around the bottom, right about there. And my favorite way to add ribbon to a project is to use a Xyron and run the ribbon through there. So I just stick it in the end. This is the 5" I think, and turn the crank and watch mine run out now. Turn the crank until it comes out and then rip it off. There we go. So you've already got the nice adhesive on there. And I'm going to just go ahead and peel that off. And it's a really good sturdy adhesive, which will allow me to line this up and drop it right onto the card base. I'm going to use the grid on this since I don't have my craft mat here right now, and just line this up on the grid and line up my ribbon somewhere in the middle and get it even, and then just pull it around to the back. Pretty simple, and because I'm going to be using foam squares to attach that to my card, my pattern paper, I don't need to worry about the fact that this is pretty bulky because it won't show. And then I'm going to attach that on with foam adhesive, and I'm just going to put quite a few here and there. I'm running out of the end of this. I could have used my foam tape, probably would have gone faster, but I'm down to the last little bit of this, so I'll go ahead and use these squares up. It's going to be a little tedious, but that's okay. So I'm just going to put all these down. So it's got a nice, and like I said, I probably go overkill on adhesive. I could probably do 3 or 4 of these, but I'm on the end of them, and if I don't use them up, they're just gonna start falling off. So yeah, because that one's already lost its sticky, so I can get rid of that. And then this is just gonna drop right on the front of my polka dot pattern paper. And like I said, I think that's an Amy Tan American Crafts. I'm gonna use my Wing of Stella brush pen in gold. I can't see that very well. Give that candle just a little bit more oomph. I don't know if you can see the glitter there very well, but it is there. And then a little bit more around it. Now we got it flowing. There. Now you should be able to see it a little better. So it just gives it a little bit of sparkle. And then I will let that dry as I start peeling off all of my little pieces off of my foam squares. And I purposely left the foam squares off of the velvet so that it would lay flat in that spot. Okay, and then I'm going to attach this to my card base right in the middle. Right about like that. Looks pretty close to being in the middle. Before I press it down, just make sure I've got it centered and even. Just like that. Looks pretty good. Press it down. I'm still not going to touch the candle or the flame because I want to make sure that has time to dry. And then I'm going to get my card base, and this whole piece goes onto my card base. Just like that. So I'm going to adhere that down. It's dry now. Okay. Adhere this down. Try not to flatten out my card front. adhere this down to my card base. Just like that. And there's my card. Pretty simple. It could be for a man or a woman without too much problem. And when I do the envelope, I will probably put the cheese by itself without the sentiment, just in black and white on the outside of the envelope on the back. That's it. If you found this video helpful, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Have a good day.